Good evening. My name is Jeremy Philibon. I'm here tonight to discuss information pertaining to the sport of horse racing, from its early origins to the modern times. An interesting tidbit about horse racing comes from a book titled The Sports Book: The Games, the Rules, the Tactics, and the Techniques. It states that horse racing began nearly 4,000 years ago. This is 6 times longer than the most popular team sports in Northern America today. These sports being football, baseball, basketball, and ice hockey. There'll be many aspects discussed about horse racing tonight, from the horses themselves, the racing, tracks, gambling, and its ongoing evolution. Some information about horse racing is that a lot of people love sports, animals, or both. This can make horse racing a potential viable option for sports entertainment for some people. Personally, I don't have an extensive background in horse racing. However, I have been watching the Triple Crown for the last 5 years or so. The Triple Crown is some specific races that we will discuss later on. This viewership has allowed me to learn valuable info about the races itself, the horses, the tracks, the owners, the jockeys, the trainers, the rules, politics, and gambling as well. We will first discuss the origin of horse racing, then move on to match and open field racing, and finishing up with the modern times of horse racing. Now, to start off about the origin of horse racing, it is best to start out with the first known record of horse racing is from the 11th to 13th centuries. Where the most prominent type of horse that would race would be an Arabian like this one. Also, barb and tusk horses would participate as well. In medieval 12th century England, the racing was all about sales and competition, and the first organized horse race took place in 1189. Richard the Lionheart, King of England from 1189 to 1199, offered the first purse in horse racing, which is considered a prelude to winnings and gambling per Britannica.com. Now, Henry VIII in England encouraged cities to sponsor races whilst also importing horses from Italy and Spain in the early part of the 17th century. James I also sponsored meetings for the advancement of horse racing, and Charles I owned a vast amount of horse studs during his lifetime and reign up until 1649. All of this information shows how important the origin of horse racing was to the first half of the 17th century in England. The information about Henry VIII was provided by Britannica, while the information on James and Charles I was afforded from the American Eras section about horse racing in Encyclopedia.com. Now that we have covered the origins of horse racing, we will move on to match and open field racing. Now, when you discuss match racing, this photo right here is a more modern one, which has 2 famous horses here, Seabiscuit and War Admiral. However, match racing had its beginnings later in the 17th century, many years ago. Per Britannica, typically match races would have just 2 or 3 horse jockey pairings with simplistic betting that would take place. Record keepers and match holders also came to be prominent during this time period, with annual records and reviews starting in the year 1729, and they were further expanded on in the year 1773. Moving on to open field racing, we have a photo here, this vintage folk art from Etsy.com. Shows several horses racing. This type of racing increased the races, the length themselves, the audience, and also the betting that would be involved with it. Per the sports book, jockeys became prominent during this time period. Especially starting in the late 18th century, really rearing up in the mid 19th century. The sportsbook.com also advises of the importance of the jockey-trainer relationship as the length of the races increased. Jockeys became more experienced riders with special gear such as crash caps, racing silks with the team owner's colors on them, white pants. They also had shoulder padding and padded panels, and they also had long boots with boot tops. Now moving on to the modern era of horse racing, in the 20th and 21st century, the horses were typically born on January 1st in a small amount. This was to keep the supply limited, and so it would bring top dollar when it came time to bring the horses to the sales table. The horses were usually handicapped by age and weight. The horse racing usually happened with horses of similar age, gender, and also demographics of the owners as well to maintain a level racing field. The modern era, you also have to discuss the most prestigious races, of course. In North America, we'll begin with the horse. This is Churchill Downs, which is where the Kentucky Derby is held in Louisville, Kentucky. This photo was provided by the track's website. This is, of course, the first race in the Triple Crown. The next race takes place at Pimlico Racecourse. This is the Preakness Stakes, which is held in Baltimore, Maryland. And this is a photo here from betaclock.com, which just shows the front stretch and main grandstand area. The third and final leg of the Triple Crown takes place at Belmont Park, known as the Belmont Stakes in Elmont, New York. This photo is from thisisracing.com and just shows a single jockey and horse pairing racing down the front stretch in front of the grandstands. Now, outside of the United States, there are some very prominent races as well to be known. There is the Longchamp in France, the Ascot in England, and also the Ireland as well. Per the sports book, there are two prominent types of tracks that are raced upon in mainstream competition in the modern era. Those are grass and dirt tracks. Now, other tracks exist, but these are the ones that are mostly used, and the most well-known for that matter. Britannica.com advises of 5 aspects to focus on for horse racing outside of the horses and tracks themselves. Number 1 is the wealth, time, and effort on the part of the owners. 2 is the demographics, attributes, and skills of the jockeys. 3 is the behind-the-scenes role of the trainers up until race day. 4 is the increasing numbers and personalities of the fan base. And 5 is also the introduction of odds has caused wagering and gambling to grow to near record proportions. In conclusion tonight, a lot of information about horse racing has been afforded to you all, from the origin of horse racing, the horses, tracks, people involved, the skill involved, and all the way up until the present day. In conclusion, positive information has been given about horse racing. I would encourage each individual to understand the people and animals' involvement in the sport to make sure that it is a viable sporting entertainment option for them. I want to thank all of you for your attentiveness tonight, and you've been a hospitable audience, and I wish you all a good night.